Hello friends and welcome to Ask Zach. Today we're going to talk about what I have seen as the three elements of success that I've seen play out in the hundreds of interviews that I've done with famous guitar players. And the two of them you have control over, and the third one, which we'll call luck, we don't. But of course we do have we have to have the other two elements. And then we have to put ourselves out there to where we can take advantage of luck and timing or happenstance, whatever you want to call that third element. So we're going to talk about those three elements and give some examples from some of the interviews that I've done through the years. And just going to have some fun. And I want to challenge you and myself and others. I want to challenge us all to think about these three elements and how we are, hitting on the ones that we have control over, and how we're taking advantage of opportunities and taking risks and such to grow as whether it's musicians or human beings or as business people or what have you. So we're going to talk about that today. I need to thank our sponsor, which is TrueFire. And if you use the link below and the code AskZach30, you can get 30% off. I have very much enjoyed TrueFire. I have the All Access Pass, and lately I've been enjoying Kirk Fletcher's rhythm guitar method. He has one on Cornell Dupree that's simply called Dupree, and it is fantastic. I love the interface that TrueFire has. I really enjoyed and have really been learning a lot from them, and highly recommend it to you guys. All right, let's dive in. So again, I've done a lot of interviews through the years. First in print for Vintage Guitar Magazine, then started with the Truetone Lounge, and have done a lot of long form interviews. So these haven't been like the little short things where someone lists off their 5 favorite records and what piece of gear they've bought, but where we've really, kind of dug in deep about their career and what has helped them, through the years. And one of the things I started, thinking about over the last couple months was just the elements that connect all of these interviews together. And I started seeing what I see as three elements that every successful musician, that I've interviewed has had. And number one would be hard work. So they work hard, they practice, they learn, they have their gear together, all those things. There's hard work, preparation. So let's put that in one category. Extremely important. If you don't have that, you're not going anywhere. Second category, and this is one where a lot of people fall by the wayside, and that's risk-taking. And so risk-taking is taking that gig that is really going to be difficult, that you're really going to have to put a lot of extra work in, that you could fail miserably, that you could fall flat on your face, producing your first record, whatever it is. It's that it's asking over and over again, hey, do you need a guitar player at a songwriter night? It's just that being willing to put it out there and probably be told no a whole lot until finally you get the yes. And that kind of ties into the third element. Now, the first two we have control over, but the third element we don't. The third element, you could call it luck or timing or happenstance. And that's something that just, you have to have the first two, and then you kind of have to keep putting yourselves in situations where the third opportunity where luck or happenstance can happen, can take place. So I'll give an example from a couple of the interviews I've done. One would be John Jorgensen, who I'm a huge fan of and have a ton of respect for. John Jorgensen went to the NAMM show in Anaheim, California one year. And at the time he was playing at Disneyland and not working with any major artist. And he, on his own, was learning a lot of the music of David Grisman, who's a kind of a newgrass mandolinist. And he saw him at the NAMM show in the Saga booth, and he was kind of doing demos with his new signature model mandolin. Well, John Jorgensen asks him, said, "Hey, can I sit in with you?" That's pretty risky. He could have been told no, but he had the preparation beforehand. He had been practicing David Grisman's music, and he knew a lot of his songs. So David Grisman now comes in the luck part. David Grisman happens to be in a good mood and is willing to give John a chance, even though he doesn't know him from Adam. And he says yes. So John Jorgensen gets up with David Grisman at a NAMM booth playing, kind of newgrass music. Well, then more happenstance comes into play. Chris Hillman, who had been told about John Jorgensen, but was not going to give him the time of day because he felt he was too young and inexperienced, he had just kind of passed on John. But he comes up to the booth, he sees David Grisman, and he sees John Jorgensen playing together, and they're playing together beautifully, and he decides to hire John to play with him, to replace Bernie Ledden in his band. Now, from that comes the Desert Rose Band, and also through that connection, his work with Elton John and so many others. But that was this pivotal moment where his career really made this major turn in the right direction. And it was all because he was prepared, he took a risk, and then there was this luck happenstance element where Chris Hillman happens to walk up. I'll give another one. This is with my good friend JD Simo. So JD he had moved to town, and I had helped him make a record. I had played rhythm guitar on it, and one of the other musicians on it was David Rowe, who is a famous bass player who has played with Johnny Cash and Dwight Yoakam, and also, of course, played with the Don Kelly Band off and on for many years. So here's where it all comes together. Of course, JD made this record. He went shopping it around to labels, and no one bid on it. And he was forlorn and out of money. He had no money. He was renting a room in someone's house. He didn't have money for rent. And so he went down on Broadway here in Nashville, and he started busking with an acoustic guitar and had his acoustic guitar case out. Okay, now remember before I told you that he had hired David Rowe to play bass on this record that we all helped him out on. Well, Dave Rowe comes walking by on Broadway, and he sees JD, and JD was extremely embarrassed. And he said at that moment, I could either tell a lie and say, "Hey, I'm just joking around. I'm just doing this for fun." Or he said, I could be honest and tell him, "Hey, I'm out of money, and I'm dead broke, and I got to make a buck." And he chose the latter. He took the really risky route, and he was, brutally honest with Dave Rowe. And Dave Rowe kind of, felt bad for him and wanted to help him. So Dave Rowe took him immediately down to Don Kelly and introduced them. And so that is how JD started working with the Don Kelly Band, and how he got so much experience and training with that group. And it was all from his hard work, and then putting it out there, and then Dave Rowe happened to be walking by. It's amazing how, this just happens over and over again. It could be with Justin Ostrander, who kept going to writers' nights, asking the writers if they needed a guitar player, and they would keep telling him no, and they even kind of got ugly about it. And then he just keeps showing up to this writers' night, keeps showing up. Finally, someone doesn't show up, and all of a sudden they're desperate for a guitar player, and they're willing to take a chance with him after they've told him no dozens of times. So these are the things. These are kind of the elements. There's hard work, preparation. I think about Derek Wells, who now is, of course, a very well-established session guitarist and producer. Derek Wells used to be ready every morning for a session, even though he didn't have one, because he was waiting for someone not to show up. Because there's always going to be someone that gets sick, they're in a car accident, their kid breaks their leg, whatever it is. And so he would wake up every day, have his gear ready to go, and he would just be prepared for that. And it paid off, because eventually he did get calls, and he saved the day where some guitar player didn't show up, and that was his foot in the door. So I just want to challenge all of us to think about, how am I being prepared? How am I putting in hard work? How am I taking risks? Am I just sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring? Or am I really putting myself out there and putting myself in situations where I have the opportunity to grow? Because we don't have control over this third element, this happenstance luck thing, that's timing. But it's always there. But if we don't have the first two, the third can never happen. And the more we take risks, the more we're out there, the more likely it is that we're able to hit on the third one, and we can have those pivotal moments in our career. I think about myself, and I think one of the pivotal moments was, frankly, meeting Brad Paisley in college. And he wasn't, he was just another student at that point. But we, kind of developed a friendship, and he ended up opening a lot of doors for me by working with him, and just the reputation that I earned, from that. And there were so many other things that happened from that pivotal moment. And that was from me risk taking. That was me moving away from my comfort zone, which was South Texas, where I was kind of already kind of getting to be somewhat of a big deal guitar player down there. And then I moved up to Nashville, where I was a complete nobody and a zero, and took a chance and was, meeting people. And I'm kind of an introvert, and I had to kind of get out of that and really get to know other people, and make friends. And it paid off. So, all right. Well, I hope that you can take those elements, think about them, and think about them in your life. All right, we're going to have a short musical interlude, and then we're going to return with Zach's Book Nook. All right, it's time for Zach's Book Nook. This book is unfortunately out of print as far as the print edition. However, you can still get it, digitally. And this is Fender Amps: The First 50 Years by John Teagle and John Sprung. This is one of the most important reference books that I have in my entire library. I love this book. I refer to it all the time. This is the greatest book on vintage Fender amps. Why? Well, it's because it's divided up by model. So many other books might give you all sorts of information, but it's all here, there, and everywhere. This book, published in 1995, they separated it by model, and they take the model through all its different iterations. Of course, it only goes up through 1995, but that's most of what we need to know, because, of course, information on later amps is a little easier to find on the interweb, as it were. I love this book. I've tried not to wear it out. It has beautiful photos of all the different models, and fantastic information, even recommendations on amps, beautiful photos, excerpts from catalogs. Highly recommended, and I really hope that Hal Leonard will produce a updated edition, or at least kind of reprint this one. But this is again, probably if you find it online, the print edition, probably your people are going to ask somewhat crazy money. But if you can get this for under $30, highly recommend it. Or just go ahead and get the digital edition, which is available on Apple Books and other sources. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching today's episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. And again, I need to thank TrueFire for sponsoring it. And I hope you have a great week. Bye-bye.